If you get psychotic pumps versus if you don't, you will absolutely, in most cases, just love training at the gym more. And that, 9 times out of 10, will make a difference on the margins for your consistency and adherence, and that's a huge deal. You can reliably use the pump as the canary in the coal mine for am I doing a good job in training? As I say this, some of you folks might be like, holy crap, the pump really is hypertrophy. Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for RP Strength, and the question today is, do supplements that give you a pump actually work to make you more jacked? I mean, let's start out this way. They make you feel and look more jacked in the gym. So just on those grounds, I'm 100% behind taking them, flat out. This is not a lecture designed to tell you pump supplements don't work and that you shouldn't be taking them. I mean, you look cooler in the gym, which gives you loads of benefits. And I really do mean this, and I'm going to be very specific. Even if mechanistically, and we'll get to that later, there is a world in which pump supplements do nothing at all to literally cause muscle growth. Just because you get a major pump in the gym, they can have awesome benefits for overall improvement in your physique in the long term. I have actually never really taken any pump supplements. I will be trying in like a few weeks or something like that. The reason I'm trying is because Scott, the video guy, got his hands on some pump supplements and he was like, dude, nobody's playing. These shits make you swolled up like cray-cray. And that was a direct quote. Scott?
Cray-cray. FR.
But seriously, you futz with them, yeah?
I mean, they work.
They work. So the pump is altogether different.
The pump is altogether different.
Yeah.
Now, maybe to the point where it inhibits your ability to do work is where I'm curious.
We'll get to that in a second. But mind-altering pumps are dope, and here are some of the reasons why. If you have difficult to connect with muscles, for example, some people have a tough time connecting with their lats. You can't see them in the mirror. You can't see them with your own eyes when you're training them. They're back there somewhere. And so if you're supposed to be pulling, generally your back and your pulling complex will just use every muscle available to get the job done. That's how evolution designed you. It's an efficiency problem. Your back isn't like, hey, when you're doing pull-ups, I'm going to try to maximally activate the lats to get you to grow. It doesn't do that. Some people, when they can't connect with their lats, for example, if they have a gnarly pump, it literally allows you to have a better mind-muscle connection because you're like more kinesthetically aware of the muscle, and then you can drive more with that muscle. That's definitely a thing. For muscles which you don't have a problem connecting with, this wouldn't help at all. But for some muscles, it might make a little bit of a difference. In addition to this, there are many other things. For example, if you look at yourself in the mirror to check out your pump between sets, which if you don't, I'm just not sure why you stumbled in accidentally this video on our wacky channel where aesthetics and hypertrophy are the thing that matters the most in this world, maybe second to just having bigger arms, but massive pumps are a big deal. If you love checking yourself out in the mirror when you got your tank top on, you're enjoying the gym more. And enjoying your workouts more is this flywheel that keeps you training hard, keeps you coming back to the gym, keeps you training hard, keeps you coming back to the gym, and allows you to grow more over time because it makes you train harder and more consistently. If you get psychotic pumps versus if you don't, you will absolutely, in most cases, just love training at the gym more. And that 9 times out of 10 will make a difference on the margins for your consistency and adherence, and that's a huge deal. Loving the gym is a big deal, so much so that if I know someone is doing certain exercises or training with a certain rep range that I consider scientifically to be kind of suboptimal, but they've told me or told other folks that they really like doing this. It's super fun for them. It's addicting. It gives them that reason to be in the gym. I never try to kick that you-know-what out of the you-know-what. Scott, we can swear a little more in this one, right? Yeah, it's not live. Yeah. I'm not trying to kick I'm not trying to kick dicks out of people's mouths here. So if you even like something that's a little bit suboptimal, but you really like it, that is a counterbalance that makes that effort relatively equivalent. So if you like to do, let's say, hack squats, you're doing them wrong and they're sort of not great for you, but you really love doing them, I'm going to say like, yeah, keep doing them because enjoyment is such a big factor in the gym. Here's another one. You get big pumps, you get more approval from gym folks. Gym guy folks? Yeah? No? Anyone? Gym girl folks? Transy folks could also get it. You feel me? And then if people are like complimenting you and asking you like, dude, you trained chest today? Holy crap. Again, more enjoyment, more approval. You're going to come in more often. You're going to train harder, and coming in more often and training harder, frequency and volume are absolutely the biggest variables in growth over time, especially when long-term consistency is played into the equation. So that's huge. So thus, more pumps give you more motivation to hit the gym regularly, which is a big deal. Right there, if we just stop the video right there, pump supplements are already worth taking if you like how they make you feel. Straight up. Here's another thing. Pumps maximize when you do more effort per set, lower RIR, closer to failure, and with more sets, more volume. The more volume you do and the harder each set is, all other things being equal, the bigger of a pump you start to generate. And according to all of the scientific data we have available and almost everyone's practical experience, so long as you can recover and so long as your fatigue doesn't get excessive, getting closer to failure and doing more sets absolutely causes, mechanistically, more muscle growth. So if you get really motivated with amazing pumps, you're going to probabilistically do more work. However, here's the wrinkle that makes this even better of an argument. If you are in a position where pumps are typically tough for you to get, but if you take a pump supplement, the pumps are now like for other people normal to get, and for you like, oh wow, I'm actually getting pumps. All of those benefits can make you more excited to do more sets and more reps. Let me give you an example. You are a person who in some muscle group doesn't get a super big pump. And you're doing, let's say, hamstring curls till you're blue in the face, close to failure, and just nothing's happening. You're like, I'm going to do 3 sets. I put in the work. I did resistance. I applied mechanical tension. Good. I'm good on to the next thing. But if you're getting a big pump and you're just vibing and you know now you're getting normal pumps because you usually get crap ones, you might be inclined to push even harder. Or you might be inclined to do a few more sets, and both of those will result in more growth because your motivation is now up to where it's supposed to be if you were getting normal pumps. The analogy here, and I wrote this down, just think it's a decent way to look at it. If you like a job a certain level, just for the work that you're doing, if you're getting paid $20 an hour to do that job, you're going to do your job, you're going to do it well. If you're getting paid $200 an hour to do that job, you're going to do a lot of overtime and you're going to give everything to that job. Just the same way, if you get meh pumps on any given average muscle, and now with a pump supplement, you get amazing pumps, your probability of doing a harder set in any given set, which is working harder at your job analogy, doing a better job at work while you're there, and your probability of doing more sets, which is the analogy of overtime, both go up, and both of those cause muscle growth to increase, which is a huge deal. And the last one here in this little grouping is typically your pumps are the worst towards the end of fat loss phases. Scott, like towards the end of a fat loss phase, you're like, it's like poking a dead animal, like wake up quads. And they're like, nah, I'm good, man. I'm just tired. Get the hell off of me. If you can have great pumps by taking pump supplements, especially towards the end of fat loss phases, then you can 100% have that reflex loop of cooler look, better for you, better for other people. You're pushing the muscle even harder. You're doing more sets. And that means that sap of motivation that can happen towards the end of fat loss phases doesn't happen as much or at all. You're having an amazing time. Here's the thing. When you're off season or not in the greatest shape, pumps, like you can't even kind of tell. Scott, you get to a certain body fat level and people are like, do you get pumps? And you're like, I don't know, man. Like it's under like a fur coat of fat. Who the hell knows? But when you're leaner and you can see some veins, some detail, some muscle separation, pumps make you look way different and cool to a level that's difficult to describe unless you've experienced it. And so there at the end of fat loss phases, pump supplements make all of those things I just talked about, that psychological feedback loop, like 3 times more powerful. So there, pump supplements already 100% are earning their keep with no mechanistic direct cause from more pump supplements. More pump equals more hypertrophy at the cellular level. We don't even need any of that, and pump supplements already get a giant green check mark. Pump supplement companies, you guys are doing great work. Keep up the good stuff. Now, we do have to have some reservations, because on the other hand, your pumps can get so crazy, and Scott has recently had this with a certain pump product. It's just 8 pills of Viagra, to be honest. Just
that explains why they asked me to leave the gym.
Yes. You took the Viagra to be able to do fun things with a significant other, and she finished her cigarette, ashed it on you, and told you to leave. And then you're like, I have nowhere to go. And well, I'll just go to the gym. And then you got a huge pump. So all jokes aside, the situation there is if you get a crazy enough pump, it can actually prevent your work capacity from being at maximum because your muscles are just like, we're not moving anymore. And it's like, you guys might have had, please throw in the comments some stories you've had before this. The pump gets so massive that you can't even do another set. You're like, I can barely move. I'm like all cramped up. That would be a problem. That's a very risky bet. Because even if the pump from pump supplements mechanistically causes hypertrophy, and we'll see in a bit what that looks like, even if it does that, you're now fighting volume. And I got to tell you guys, there's only one variable that can bump up against volume, and that is relative effort. If you're training 10 reps away from failure, 15 reps away from failure, more and more sets still causes more growth. But if you went and trained 3 reps away from failure, then that's a better trade-off than doing a few more sets. That's really the only variable that touches that. Because after that, and most people don't train 15 reps away from failure, even I train like 5 reps away from failure. If you're really in that boat, volume is the king of turn dialing your hypertrophy. Let me say this another way to be very specific. All other things being equal, and even in many cases not, just doing more sets causes more growth. It is the single, as long as you're training pretty hard, but within each set, and I mean pretty hard, not even very hard, doing more sets is the most dependable way to grow. And doing fewer sets is the most dependable way to not grow more. Because that's the case, if pump supplements or anything else for that matter reduce how much volume you can put in, it's a non-starter. It's the last thing that you want to do. It's like you have a race car and you're trying to go as fast as possible, and you put something in the car that it's a different paint job. Doesn't make the car slower, doesn't make it faster, but who cares? You need vibes. It's the equivalent of putting like a 2-ton safe in your back seat and being like, well, it shouldn't have an effect on it. Be like, you're telling me your car's like curb weight doesn't have an effect on its acceleration and its like turn radius. Like, does it? Like, yes, it is the absolute. Scott, am I just off? You know racing way better than I do. The weight of the vehicle for any given engine power is absolutely a massive concern. Yes. Sure. And so if anything is making your car heavier, that's bad, right? Like, yeah, all other things being equal, right? That's how we're looking at volume. So if you have a bigger engine in your car and it produces more power, every time there's a calculation of, but is the power worth the extra weight of the engine? In just the same way, anything you do better not with your training volume. And if pump supplements do, and sometimes they can, it is absolutely a massive concern. So that's a big deal. But so we have to ask the question, do bigger pumps cause more growth? Like mechanistically, like cause, not it makes you have more fun, thus for real cause at a chemical level. Let's take a look. I have 5 main points of discussion here. This is a deep dive for science. If you guys futz with this, stay tuned. First, there are correlations between pump levels and growth levels that are incredibly important to consider because they are very, very powerful. Let me list just some of them. This isn't even all of them. As I say this, some of you folks might be like, holy crap, the pump really is hypertrophy. Why would you say that? Let me give you some details. Direct research, literally actual empirical published studies, show that the people that get the biggest pumps in week 1 of training are well predicted, much more above average, statistically significantly, to gain more muscle through a multiple week training study than the people in that study who in week 1 didn't get as big of pumps. This means that if you and a few other friends get in, and let's say none of you are trained, and you do 2 or 3 sets of chest flies or stiff-legged deadlifts or bicep curls, whichever of your friends gets the biggest pump relatively is more likely to grow the most when you start training. That's huge. right? And this is a finding that's very, very solid. Something there about the pump has some relationship to hypertrophy. There is a very strong correlation, but it goes further. Let me rapid fire these. If you need to pause the video at any point to consider this, by all means. Surplus diet. Eating in a surplus gives you bigger pumps than eating at a deficit or at maintenance. Surplus also grows you more. Low fatigue state gives you bigger pumps than a high fatigue state, and dependably, every single time, grows you more muscle. When you get more sleep and higher quality sleep, your pumps are better than if you get less sleep and lower quality sleep. And it absolutely grows way more muscle. When you have a newer training age, when you're newer to training, pumps are psychotic. And if you've been training for a long time, the pumps typically are not as psychotic as your first several weeks, months, or years in the gym. And a newer training age is noob gains and is one of the most reliable findings in exercise and sports science. People in the early phase of training grow more muscle per unit time than people in the later phase. Okay, this is getting interesting. Here's one that's really trippy. And this is something you might have noticed in yourself as well. When you have really good genetics for a given muscle group of yours more than others, let's say kind of no matter what you do, your biceps grow, but no matter what you do, your triceps kind of don't grow nearly as much, or any other two muscles in your body. Almost always, in my quite extensive experience at this point, I guess, I could be wrong about all these, by the way, but I think there's something there. The muscles, even in an individual between each other, that get the biggest pumps tend to grow the most. Scott, has that been true in your experience for your own body?
I would say yes.
Your back is a super strong response to anything muscle, right? And you get a back pump holding the camera.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right? What is a muscle of yours that like doesn't, it's like a
quads don't really like get DOMs the next day or pumped or whatever, and they're just small.
Yep. Yep. It's the same way for me. My experience with every single muscle of my body is the muscles that are the most genetically strong for me, which for me is chest and quads. I can do like a few sets and they just blow up. And then like my biceps, I got to destroy. My shoulders are my weakest muscle group relatively. And like, I get shoulder pumps, Scott, but it really, you got to really like, really like look, you got to really squint. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. On the pump sup, I did like 2 sets of lat pull downs and I was like, I'm out of here.
Well,
I can't even like,
good
lift
genetics.
my arms over my head.
Yeah. Good genetics plus pumps up is the end of the day. Yeah. Here's another one. Novel exercises or rep ranges, things you're not used to, are very well in the literature documented to cause more growth in the short term, of course. If you alter every week around a novelty and then it's all the same. But if you've been doing something for a while, switching absolutely causes more gains, and that causes bigger pumps. Okay, similar to the whole novelty thing with training age. Better technique gives you bigger pumps in that muscle. How do we know your technique is good in the short term if Jared Feather, IFBB Pro, and I train you? We know one of the ways is you feel it. Another way is literally you have better pumps. A lot of the folks we train, we alter their technique and they're like, dude, I've never had a chest pump like this. That's not rocket science. And if we're training someone, let's say we're trying to hit their glutes and we're like, do you get like, you're getting a glute pump? And they're like, no, I've gotten better pumps usually for most of the other shit. Jared and I look at each other, we're like, so we don't really know as much as we thought we did. That's definitely a thing. Here's another one. More specificity gives you bigger pumps. So if you do wide grip presses, which are more specific for chest, you get a bigger chest pump than a tricep pump. If you do close grip bench, which is more for triceps than it is for chest, relatively speaking, then all of a sudden, if someone's like, hey man, you getting a big chest pump? You're like, not really, but my triceps are pumped. Like, no, trust me. Like, it's still like actually better for your chest and triceps. You're like, is it though? Like, guys, think about it. If you are doing some kind of bicep exercise and your biceps are barely getting pumped at all, but your forearms are swollen to the point where you think you've been on Pornhub for like an hour straight or something, then like, would you really be like, I don't know if this is like a bicep thing for me. And someone's like, no, trust me, or like biomechanics, like your biceps are great. You're like, my forearms are really pumped. Like, no, this doesn't grow your forearms. You'd be like a little bit confused. Like, how does that work? Right? Because every other correlation seems to align in that direction, or almost every other correlation. Here's another one. This is a real big one. Lower RIR, closer to failure sets, unequivocally cause bigger pumps. And more volume causes bigger pumps. You get a bigger pump from 2 sets than 1, 3 sets than 2, and so on down the line until you're too exhausted to do meaningful work and you get into junk volume. Remember, volume and RIR are the two most powerful variables in hypertrophy training. That's a huge deal, and they correlate exactly with a pump. However, there are two problems, which is why we can't draw a causative association just yet between pumps and hypertrophy. And here's why. Sets of 5 have been scientifically demonstrated to the point of doubt, like we're doubting this is kind of insane. It's like 27 studies to 0 or some shit, where sets of 5 cause functionally, as measured, roughly the same hypertrophy, roughly the same growth as sets of 30 or 20 or 15. But in most cases, sets of 5 do not give you nearly as good of a pump as sets of 10 or 15 or 20, but they do give the same growth. So at least the correlation isn't airtight and there's something else going on here. And lastly, because this is a science-based channel, correlation is not causation. So we do have to still ask the question, does the pump actually cause growth? Because anytime that Jared and I say the pump is really well correlated to growth, what we're saying is, but for the different rep ranges situation and maybe a few other edge cases, you can reliably use the pump as the canary in the coal mine for am I doing a good job in training? And most of the things you're going to do better in training, all things being equal, is going to cause you a bigger pump. But that doesn't mean that the pump actually causes growth. It just means it's an incredibly tight correlate. So let's talk about it. Does the pump actually cause growth? So the first question we have is why cell swelling does stimulate hypertrophy. Notice I said cell swelling, and I didn't say the pump, because we're going to be disentangling those two in just a little bit. The big crux here is the cell swelling is an intracellular event. When metabolites or osmolytes, basically a bunch of different molecules being inside the muscle cell, rise inside the fiber, lactate, inorganic phosphates, creatine, glycogen-associated solutes, etc. Typically happens during training or when you're on a lot of creatine and carbs. Water flows in to dilute, and the muscle cell itself, very important for later, swells. That swelling, and whatever other way the muscle cell itself swells, gets read by sensors in the cell. There is actually a sensor complex, Scott, called capital SWELL1.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, they clearly named it for that reason.
That's
but
cool.
It's the SWELL1 VRAC LRRC8 complex. Science is fun. There's a few other complexes in there, including integrins and ERK MAP kinase, that detect, among other things, cell swelling and cause hypertrophy to increase, directly message the mTOR-C1 complex. You guys probably remember mTOR is the central regulator of hypertrophy in the cell to cause more muscle growth. And that 100% happens. It happens in two ways. Translation of muscle accreting proteins goes up, and autophagy and breakdown go down. So not only is cell swelling anabolic, that it helps the cell grow, but it's anti-catabolic, that it helps the cell shed less of its overall protein mass. And if anabolism exceeds catabolism for long enough, you get net protein accretion and you get hypertrophy. The thing is that's a signal that needs repetition. Repeated bouts, otherwise known as hard sets, keep delivering the grow message. And on top of that, outside of training, baseline swelling, like from eating higher carb diet, taking in good creatine, having low stress, hours and days of that baseline bigger cell swelling probably helps growth, mostly not by driving anabolism much, but by reducing catabolism as well. So the training stimulus drives anabolism for the most part. The just having more swollen cells overall, okay, I'm done, decreases muscle breakdown, and then the net effect is more gains over time, which is a really, really big deal. Now, we know and there's science to back this up, that cell swelling causes more muscle growth in addition to tension, and largely because of tension. Where do pump supplements play in? Because at this point, you're like, all right, so I take pump supplements, my muscle cells swell, and I'm more jacked. Like, this is it. Like, why the hell is there a 40-minute video about this? How do pump supplements actually work, and what do they actually do? There are multiple different kinds of pump supplements. There are nitrous oxide pathway boosters. There are endothelial agonists. There are plasma and interstitial expanders like glycerol. These supplements, almost every single one of them, cause a bigger pump, not by expanding the muscle cell volume and thus causing all those awesome hypertrophy effects, but they're expanding the blood vessel volume. Visually, it's all same, more or less from the external perspective, because your muscle is just like riddled with tons of blood vessels and major ones, and all of them expand. The pump gets surpunctuous very, very quickly. And in addition to that, because of more of the blood flow, you actually get an acute recovery effect from pump supplements, which is kind of cool. However, what pump supplements mostly do not do is move osmolytes, like lactic acid or lactate rather, inorganic phosphates, etc., into the myocyte itself, into the muscle fiber. The boost is vascular, and sometimes the boost is interstitial between cell spaces, not within cell, not intracellular. So that brings us to the next point. Why pump supplements don't actually, in most cases, directly cause muscle growth. This is a little bit of the bad news. It's just the wrong compartment. Vasodilation swells the pipes, but not the fiber. It swells the blood vessels, but not the muscle cell. And if your blood vessels swell, there's not a direct way by which the muscle cell is like, hey, wake up, grow more. If the muscle cell swells, that absolutely happens. But if the blood vessels swell, not a whole lot happens. It's kind of like if you live in an apartment just above an awesome nightlife area of the city, when there's tons of people and vibes happening down in the street, that doesn't mean your apartment got any more fun. Scott, you ever do that? You just listen outside your window as you're alone and hopeless and no one loves you in your own dingy apartment, which no one ever comes to visit because you have no friends. But you see outside the window, there people are vibing in the street, and then your friends call that you don't have, so you're actually hallucinating. And they're like, hey man, what are you up to? And you're like, I'm at a party, bro.
Yeah, all the time.
All the time. Why do you screen my calls? Why don't you ever pick up when that's happening?
I'm just really busy.
Vibing in the street with your friends. So yeah, when there's a party in the street, there's not a party in your house. When there's a party in the house, that's how you're having more fun, because you're in the house, right? And so just the same way, your blood vessels expanding is dope and all and gives you a cool vibe, but it's not that causative mechanism of the pump causing hypertrophy. So check this out. Two things can be true and are true. One is blood vessel expansion does not directly cause growth. And two, intracellular swelling itself absolutely causes growth in the muscle cell. But the muscle cell isn't what's swelling from almost all pump supplements. Wrong compartment. Another thing is that the timing's kind of off. Most of the pump that you get happens between sets because that's when blood gets in. When you're actually contracting the crap out of your muscles, the muscle cells aren't swelling, and even the blood vessels aren't swelling because the pressure pushes all the blood out. So even if there was a thing where your blood vessel somehow did the growth thing, the timing is kind of weird. There are ways to get around that, but it at least is a nuisance. There's a little bit of a paradox too. Now, this one I wouldn't put too fine a point on. It's probably a minor effect. But what you want is metabolite sequestration. This is not confirmed. It's still hypothetical. There's a lot of data to support it, but none of it is as direct as we would like. Tension absolutely causes growth, and it's the most reliable factor. Cell swelling, almost always caused by tension, absolutely causes growth, and that's not up for debate. There's a debate about do metabolites like inorganic phosphates and lactate actually cause growth. They do for sure by making your cells swell more. But the way you get them to make your cells swell more is you don't wash them out between sets as much. Pump supplements, especially of certain kinds that improve blood flow, can actually wash out your muscle cells in a sense of metabolites more than they would. And so the sequestration of metabolite, that summation which expands the muscle cell, might actually happen less. Scott, that's definitely not been your experience with the pump supplements you're using, correct?
Correct.
So that's a good sign. Those pump supplements might actually be doing something good, or at least aren't doing anything bad. But just because you're getting more blood flow to the muscle does not necessarily mean it's a good thing. Another two massive points to really get us away from this pump supplements directly cause growth situation. There is no overload dividend. When you take caffeine or when you take creatine, they make you do more reps, and caffeine lets you do more sets even. That means more reps, more sets, more volume, more tension, more stimulus, more growth. Pump supplements have been tested a bunch, and they don't reliably cause a performance dividend. They don't actually increase your ability to do more reps in a set or more sets. And sometimes in Scott's extreme case, they stop you from being able to do as many sets as you could. But even if they don't stop you, in most of these, by the way, Scott, good news, in most of these studies, they don't reduce work capacity, right? You're just a freak odd man out, and you should feel bad about yourself. Scott, am I becoming more abusive to you over time on this channel?
I think less, actually.
Should we up the physical abuse in our...
That's what I need.
Yes.
I need to be, I'm getting too cocky here. I need to be put in line.
Ooh. Why do I love that? Are we getting canceled soon? Maybe. So if the pump supplements have been tested a bunch, and the reality is, and this really is the reality, they don't on average decrease performance, but they don't boost performance. Because they don't boost performance and because they don't mechanistically cause muscle growth to happen, seemingly in most cases, you can't get too excited about it. Because if pump supplements also caused you to do more reps, more sets, even if they mechanistically didn't cause the inside of the cell to change in some way that causes more growth, then at least by making you do more work or doing, more reps close to failure, 100%, they would be like pretty much causatively, in some sense, one degree separation of cause, be causing hypertrophy. But that's not the case in most situations. And there is a lot of good stuff to say about increasing blood flow to the muscle. However, in healthy lifters, muscle remodeling is limited by tension and volume, amino acids, recovery, and internal cell swelling. It's not limited by the conduit artery diameter. People say, oh, you got to get more blood to the muscle, but most healthy lifters have no problem getting more than enough blood to the muscle. And that's just not a limiting factor for hypertrophy in most cases. And if it is, it's a very, very small one. So if you have a situation where more blood to the muscles actually causes more growth, Viagra and even more Cialis, because it's a 24/7 vasodilator, would cause more muscle growth. I mean, geez, during all of your recovery window, you get more blood to the muscle. Isn't that great? And that still doesn't seem to have hardly any measurable, if any, effect on hypertrophy. As far as I've seen, maybe more research will come out and be like, hey, Scott, Cialis turns out to be a muscle growth drug.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Love to see that.
Why are you erect in the middle of class? I'm dedicated to the iron lifestyle, Miss Teacher. I had so many other things to say there, Scott, that just wouldn't. I'll just shut up. So perfusion of blood isn't the bottleneck. So again, more blood in the muscle might not do as much as we think or would hope. Now, last part before we give the summary and take home message. There are pump enhancers that do grow muscle. But when I say these, you guys are going to be like, oh, damn it, it's the same crew again. Creatine monohydrate absolutely increases the muscle cell swelling and, unsurprisingly, causes more growth, even if you don't do more volume or get closer to failure or do more reps. Creatine is an independent effect. It's very likely because, for the most part or entirely, from that actual muscle cell swelling effect. So creatine gives you better pumps and better growth. That's dope. Take creatine. It's great. The combo of carbs plus insulin plus sodium refill glycogen and blow up your internal cell compartment more in your muscle and absolutely activate AKT mTORC1 and cause more growth largely by suppressing proteolysis or otherwise catabolism, muscle breakdown. So if you have too low of sodium intake, if you are too low on your carbohydrates, and if you are so low on your carbs and you're so deep into your diet that your total area under the curve of insulin secretion is low, you are 100% not growing as much muscle as you could be and maybe even losing more muscle than you need to be. Which is why a ton of bodybuilders, especially in the off season when it's grow time, eat a crap load of carbs. Some of the people that are on drugs absolutely inject insulin And they're eating plenty enough sodium to make sure that their pumps are radical in that way that actually causes cell expansion of the muscle and thus growth. And what will absolutely not be controversial, numerous near failure sets 100% accumulate metabolites inside the fibers. That increases the osmotic pull of water into the cell. It increases the pump, it activates a bunch of the sensing mechanisms, and it 100% causes growth. So doing more near failure sets dependably causes growth because of mechanical tension and the metabolite and pump effect that it causes. TLDR, do more hard sets. But listen, you guys didn't come to this lecture to have me tell you to take creatine, eat carbs, and plenty of sodium, and do more near failure sets. I think maybe you knew that already. If you didn't, hey, you learned a lot, because that's the real shit that causes more growth. You want for sure growth and better pumps? Take creatine, get your carbs in, don't do low carb diets if you want to grow the most muscle. I'm not going to say anything about insulin because, Russian roulette there. But if you're on growth hormone and you're a pro bodybuilder or whatever, insulin may be part of the situation. And absolutely do not ever let your sodium get too low, because your pumps will go, and that is causatively going to make you perform less and get fewer pumps and cause less muscle growth. And more near failure sets, to the extent that you can recover from them, is always the most reliable way to grow more muscle. So, in summary, do pump supplements actually work? Indirectly, they absolutely do, especially if you love the pump. And especially if these pump supplements do not reduce your performance within a set, like you could have gotten 17 reps, but because your pump is so psychotic, you only got 10, or your workout volume. So you, instead of doing 5 hard sets, you did 3 and you left the gym, like Scott with his lat pull downs. And when you use them can matter. So if you use your pump supplements, especially at the end of a fat loss phase, when you both need the visual motivation the most, are getting the shittiest pumps via low glycogen and high fatigue anyway, and it makes your pump more apparent, then it's better. Then for sure, pump supplements indirectly, but still in a major way, can help you grow more muscle. However, directly from what literature we have available so far, which isn't a ton, but plenty, no, most pump supplements don't literally mechanistically cause muscle growth. So if you don't take them, but can get psyched to train anyway, you aren't likely missing out. If you're not taking creatine, 9 times out of 10, you would grow more muscle if you took creatine. If you're not taking pump supplements, you're probably doing just fine. If you do take pump supplements and you get a lot out of them and they don't have the downsides, you're going to get indirect benefits and grow more muscle, but it's not that same one-to-one relationship. Now here's the last bit. Your RP hypertrophy app, link in description, takes care of your near failure sets where tension signals growth, causes metabolites to accumulate, and that causes cell swelling to grow even more muscle. Got it. But what about that carbs part? Are you getting enough carbs to get the best pumps? With the RP Diet Coach app, we can help you with that. And its recent updates, which are awesome, have made it smoother to use than ever. I literally plan and log every single meal in it. I have been for a few years now. And honestly, I have no idea what I do without it. Honestly, I think I would just be drifting around from truck stop. Scott, I'll take that one from the top. I don't know what I do without it. Honestly, I'd just be drifting around from truck top.
Jeez, that's a tough one, bro.
Honestly, guys, without my RP Diet Coach app, I would just be drifting around from truck stop to truck stop, selling my body to... You know what? I'll see you guys next time.